Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse, and I am back for hopefully a quicker channel update video. I know I did one of these not terribly long ago, but there's a few things that I wanted to quickly do as a bonus video. Couple current things, upcoming things, etc. So let's just dive into it. I'm not going to go into my whole channel overview spiel. But thank you to everybody who has been supporting the channel, who has just discovered the channel. Thank you to everybody for your support. So, channel stuff, just want to bring your attention to, it's been a really good month. It's just, or a good short time frame here for like video game documentaries and just game history and remakes and all that kind of stuff. We got a Quake 2 remaster. That was really good. I did a video on that. I do want to bring your attention to the making of Karateka. As I'm recording this video, I just released that video today. Digital Eclipse is killing it with their video game. I'm going to say video game documentaries and retro collections, because we had the TMNT Kawabunga collection last year. We have the Atari 50 collection and documentary, which came out late last year. And then they did this deep dive into the making of Karateka. I've put quite a bit of time into that, both the documentary portion and trying some of the different versions of the games and other prototypes and stuff that I go through in the video. If you have an interest in gaming history, preservation, just games in general, I highly recommend the making of Karateka and just Digital Eclipse games in general, because they do one heck of a job. And I think if you're going to do like a real, like a collection or a remaster, like this is how it's done. You know, it's like you really want to like honor the creators, honor the developer and their original intent. You know, maybe if you want to offer a kind of a reskinned or even like a remade version, yeah, you know, not a bad thing. But I love the way they're doing it, and I can't wait to see what's next in their Gold series. Speaking of games history and preservation, might I direct you to my other tab that I have open here, one of my other tabs, fpsdoc.com. I'll put a link in the description below, but FPS Doc, this was a Kickstarter project about 2 years ago, give or take, and the final cut of the movie is out. You can buy it digitally or physically while there's still time. I believe until September 5th. fpsdoc.com. As you very well know, if you've been a fan of the channel, or if you follow the channel for any length of time, I'm a big Doom fan, favorite game ever, big retro first-person shooter, and just first FPS genre fan in general. And so if you have any interest in gaming history, hearing from the developers, the creators, fans, and you like first-person shooters or want to know more about them, I can't recommend this documentary highly enough. It's really good. I mean, now, and this is, I've probably mentioned this on other channel update videos, but this is a 4.5-hour documentary. Now, I know there were some sites that did early reviews, and there were a couple that were complaining that it was too long. It's divided into a way where if you want to watch it in one go, you can. Go for it. If you want to watch it in breaks, there are some really nice kind of breakpoints between like different eras of shooters, or you know, they have little breaks between the titles that they cover or topics that they cover. So you can watch it either way, you know, so you don't have to binge it if you don't want to, but the creators really did their live stream screening for the Kickstarter backers of their final cut of the film today. And so I joined that. It was at noon today as I'm recording this, and it was funny because I was up far too late last night because somebody released a 26-hour long audiobook that I'm still not quite done with yet, that I got far too addicted to reading. So it was funny, a few minutes before starting the video, I'm like, oh boy, am I going to be able to sit here for 4.5 hours? I was tired because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. And it just, I started watching it. I was interacting with the chat, with the backers and the live stream and everything. And it just flew by. Like, I wasn't tired at all. Like, it's all it really made me want to do is like, oh man, I want to play this game now. I want to play that game now. So it did its job well. And there is a bit of a more focus on the retro first-person shooters. I would say the early 90s to like early 2000s. About maybe 2004, 2005, they kind of back off a little bit more. And again, if you're a big fan of first-person shooters, yes, they had to omit, not every first-person shooter that has ever been released can realistically be covered in one documentary, even if it is 4.5 hours long. Maybe they'll do a sequel, maybe they'll do future projects. I'm not going to say any more, but it could happen. Because, even there were a few games that I caught that, oh, I'm surprised they didn't talk about that one or that one. There were probably a good half a dozen titles, and like, oh, I wish they would have said something about that. But no, I mean, if you are a fan of the genre of games, you want to learn a little bit more. I mean, a lot of the stories that they tell, what I like about it is they don't just cover, this is this game, and this is what it did, and this is the weapons that it had, and the enemies. No, it's cool because each game, each section tells their own story in a different way. So one game, might be a little bit more in depth, and they might go into a lot of detail in different sections because it was so revolutionary for gaming and the genre. But then another game might cover more about, the making, or like multiplayer. Or one game might, have a few stories. There was one about like, how Halo launched the Xbox, and so there was a little bit of tying into how that almost didn't become a thing. So each, it's not a repetitive type of story for every game, and that's what I really like about this documentary. So, highly recommended. My only real complaint that I would have is the way that they do I totally get why, but especially for as good as these documentaries are, I really, there's kind of, it's almost like a limited run kind of a thing. I've talked about limited run games before where they sell physical copies of things. I did that recent review of the TMNT Shredder's Revenge Radical Edition. Earlier this week, actually, released that video. And like the problem is, like, because I've watched the In Search of Darkness movies that these guys have done. In Search of Tomorrow, which was all about 80s science fiction movies and stuff. And now we went to gaming and did the FPS doc. And my only real complaint is that, they only offer these things for kind of a limited time. Like, once they stop offering it on this website, it's kind of gone and you can't get it anymore. Especially for as much hard work as they put into it, and as comprehensive in a way as this is. I wish that even if I can understand if they wouldn't do it physically. Like, I understand limited quantity for physical, but I wish that they could somehow make a deal, have it available on, iTunes Movies or Amazon Movies. Like, have it so that people can get it, because I don't want this, it's available now. But 10, 20 years down the road, people are going to want to watch this, and where are you going to get it? That's my only real complaint about this type of documentary, because otherwise it's really good. I did get to see a early screening of it a couple months ago, but I really wasn't at liberty. I couldn't talk about it back then. But it was really cool even watching it back then, and then even seeing the final cut, how it was polished up and everything. FPS doc, really quite good, highly recommended. Link in the description below, check it out. While we're on cool first-person shooter things, I have one more thing to tell you guys. Reload Magazine is also having its Kickstarter right now for issue 2. And they are offering the digital magazine digitally for free, but you can also get a physical edition and actually support the project financially, back it on Kickstarter, and you can get a physical edition. If you missed the Reload Magazine issue 1, you can also, at a tier, you can get both issues 1 and 2. And again, Reload Magazine is a magazine devoted exclusively to retro first-person shooters, what we were just talking about kind of in FPS. And if you missed it, in issue 1, they had a sampler issue during that Kickstarter about year and a half ago. And I have an article in the issue 1 sampler, and I think you can still actually, if you go look for the original Kickstarter, I think you can still download the issue 1 sampler because they offered that for free. And I have an issue in that sampler issue of it's a feature article on the Toby accessibility mod for Doom. And so, yeah, back when that, physical magazines don't really do much good for me because, I can't read the print in the physical books, but I had to get that physical because, come on, man. You get the digital version, but like seeing your name and seeing your article that you wrote in a print magazine, that's freaking cool. I'm proud of that. That was really fun. But yes, Reload Magazine is on Kickstarter right now. You'll be able to get the digital edition for free, but if you want to support them, if you can support them, they are a really good group of dudes. And yeah, if you're into the genre like I am, I definitely recommend supporting these guys as well. Now, I don't have the website up here, but one thing I can mention is at the end of September, I believe it's the 29th or 30th, I forget exactly when, Realms Deep. I've talked about that show for the last 2-3, I'm trying to remember, it's been at least 3-4 years now that they've been doing it. And this is a kind of a gaming, what would you call it? Like a gaming showcase, like your non-E3 events type of thing. But it's not exclusively devoted to first-person shooters, but it is largely a showcase devoted to retro first-person shooters. And I've already heard some teasers about things that are going to be there, so I am very, very intrigued. I will definitely be watching that on that day. But yeah, they have some other titles besides retro shooters, but that is largely the focus. And it's become, along with the Game Accessibility Conference, one of my favorite times of year. So yes, definitely look up Realms Deep. You can follow them on social media as well. That is coming up later this month. And speaking of the Game Accessibility Conference, I did register already for the virtual, basically the virtual attendance, and that is going to be in early October. So just go to GAConf, go to their website and register. You can join their Discord while the event is happening and chat and and network with other people interested in game accessibility, other gamers, developers, um, anything in between. So there's a lot of cool stuff still happening this year. We're going to have the Apple event on September 12th. So, I don't think there's a whole lot to spoil. All the leaks I think we have a fairly good idea, of at least what the iPhone 15 series is going to be. And just a little teaser, I will say iOS 17 is pretty good so far. I've had it on my old XS Max for at least a month or two now, and 16 was just running so stupidly on my 13 Pro Max, and it was running in 17 was the beta of 17 was running pretty well on my older, XS Max. So about 3-4 days ago, I finally said to hell with it, and I put the developer beta on my 13 Pro Max, and so far, even on my daily driver phone. Like I said, normally I don't do that, but since I had it on an older device and I was able to thoroughly test it and go, this seems pretty solid, I put it on my daily iPhone that I use constantly, and it's run pretty good. It's run more smoothly overall than iOS 16 has in months. So glad to see that. There are still a few bugs here and there that I have reported. Hopefully they get addressed. I think I told you guys about the Alex bug that I was encountering in the iOS 17 beta, and it still slightly happens, and I kind of figured out more in the last couple days. I think I figured out when it happens. It's basically what happens if I have the Alex voice running on my phone. If there is some processor-heavy task running in the background, it'll just switch to Samantha for a short while, which is obnoxious. But on average use, it doesn't happen very often. It happens very infrequently now, less than it did in earlier betas. But I've narrowed it down to when there's something really heavily processed in the background, for some reason it wants to switch back to Samantha temporarily until things get under control again, maybe for a few seconds or whatever it is. I've reported that, so we'll see if they optimize that more. But it all depends on what voice you use. I use the Alex voice just because I have kind of gotten used to it. So yeah, those are some things to look forward to. Like I said, go check out the FPS documentary. Go check out the Reload Magazine Kickstarter. We've got the Apple event. We've got a Google thing coming up, I think, sometime later this month. There's an Oculus thing later this month, which I'm not going to hold my breath that they're finally going to add accessibility, but one can only dream, one can only hope. We have the Game Accessibility Conference next month. And that's not counting the gazillions of games that are coming out in the next 2-3 months. RoboCop got delayed until November 2nd, which, okay, fine. But, we have Starfield that's out for early access right now for the pre-orders. But that's out in a few days for everybody else. We have Mortal Kombat 1, which is going to be hype. That's going to be... I'm really looking forward to that for sure with all the accessibility stuff that we've seen. We've got Forza, we've got Alan Wake, there's just too many to think. The next 2 months are just going to be absolute insanity. And that's not even counting my backlog of stuff that I want to play so I can consider things for the end of year stuff, and if I get selected for the Game of the Year award or the Game Awards and stuff again for the accessibility category. But man, yeah, 2023 We are eating good this year. It's pretty good. Um, we did have a Nintendo Direct for Mario Wonder, which actually looks really intriguing. It's kind of got a new Super Mario Brothers look, but not quite. They've kind of mixed things up a little bit. There's a lot of voice acting. What I'm really surprised is, and the other thing is um, what's his name? What's his name? Um, oh, the Mario voice. I'll think of it later. But he announced recently that he's retiring doing the Mario voice. So starting with, I think there was one other title already, but starting for sure with Mario Wonder, we're going to be getting a new Mario voice that's kind of similar, but it's a bit different. But there's actually a lot more voice acting. Like even some of like the other characters that are in the game. I was kind of surprised, and I really wish they would have done that more for the Zelda game earlier this year, because they do cutscenes, but then they do all this text dialogue when they just grunt and sway side to side and make noises, and I don't like. I mean, come on, especially if you're Nintendo, it's one thing if you're an indie developer that can't afford voice acting. Fine, I get it. But Nintendo, you've got gazillions of dollars in the bank. Um, I think you could add, if you're going to have voiced dialogue for some cutscenes, even if you don't make Link talk, make all the other characters talk. It adds to immersion, and it really, really helps for accessibility. So, I don't know, like, it's weird to hear the Mario games have so much speech, and I would love to see that in other titles going forward. Hell, I would love to see the Mario RPG, Super Mario RPG remake that's coming out later this year. I would love to see that have voice acting for the dialogue. That would be great, but I kind of doubt that's going to be a thing. But yeah, I mean, Mario Wonder looks really interesting. They've got a couple of characters, Yoshi, and I forget the other character's name. But those are kind of, if you choose those characters, they're a little bit more kind of like easy modes. You still will die if you fall in pits, but like you won't necessarily get hurt through enemies. And Yoshi's got his little flutter jump. So, they're likely not going to include, traditionally what we would think as additional accessibility features. But, at least there may be some things that will help some people. And the game just looks weird enough that I kind of want to check it out. Finally, to wrap up, I do just want to give a couple quick initial thoughts on Starfield, because yes, I did decide to pre-order the game because it's a Bethesda game, and it's a single-player Bethesda game. It's none of this Fallout 76 nonsense. A Fallout or Oblivion or Elder Scrolls type of game, but like a new type of, or a new franchise set in space. That could be pretty interesting. And having played many hours of previous Bethesda games, RPGs, I was still pretty intrigued about Starfield. On the flip side, I am I'm more than a bit disappointed that they really don't have much in the way of accessibility. They do have an accessibility menu, but there's only like 4 options in there right now, maybe 5. The one that I did enable that actually does help fairly significantly for me, they do have a large text mode, a large text thing you can turn on. It's not a slider or anything, it's just on or off. You have your default size and your large size. And, for reading for reading like your weapon stats and it does apply to not just your subtitles, but it applies to menus and your inventory and a lot of that stuff. It does work for that. And the text size is actually fairly reasonable. Now, and I will try to have a video for this, hopefully by the end of the week, maybe this coming Saturday's video, because it's a huge game and I want to devote some time to it before I do a spotlight video on it. But I've played about probably 3-ish hours or so, and I did the initial mission or two. I actually did maybe a couple different missions so far. I made it to I forget the name of it. I made it to the first, major planet, major city, and I've been wandering around there for a little bit. So I've had a little bit of ground combat, a little bit of space combat and flight, and walking around, a lot of character interaction, character dialogue, that kind of a thing. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I was admittedly I was hoping for more accessibility, being a first-party Microsoft title. Now, again, it's not Microsoft specifically; it's Bethesda. But with the focus that Microsoft has had on accessibility for the past few years, they've been talking a pretty good game. But again, this was already in development. I think right around or before. I'm trying to remember when Microsoft acquired Bethesda. No, it's been quite a while ago, I think. Hell, I don't know. Nevertheless, though, and when I did attend the Game Accessibility Conference in 2019, I did know that there were one or two people there from Bethesda, and again, it's not up to, here's the thing is, it's not up to just that one person. It's like, okay, we have people that care about it, but in order to do it properly, in order to do it well, you have to have buy-in, you have to have support throughout the whole team and not just throw it on one or two people's shoulders, And by that time, Starfield was likely already pretty deeply in development. So one can hope that maybe their next game will have a little bit more. Maybe hopefully Microsoft will take a little bit more of a hands-on role and say, hey, we're not going to tell you what to make, but you're a first-party studio, and accessibility is one of the standards that we would like our developers to kind of live up to. That would be really, really nice, actually. But yeah, so Starfield, there are definitely things that I like about it, and there are a few things that I'm not so sure I'm fond of. I haven't gotten into a ton of combat yet, but I didn't mind that too much. The spaceship combat so far, again, I've done so little of it, but honestly, the space travel stuff is a little bit, the interface is a little bit jank to me, or a little bit confusing. Actually, when I was in the spaceship itself, I actually found that for me, switching to the Xbox controller when flying was I kind of like that a little bit better. So I'd play the on-foot stuff, keyboard and mouse, but then just switch right over to the controller for the flight stuff. There are, the large text stuff is nice. There is no menu narration, which is a bummer. And I would say even some of the contrast can be kind of tough. So some of the UI, some areas have a light background, and they just don't have really good contrast. I will say the menus themselves generally, though, like when you're checking out your ship or your equipment or your inventory, that kind of a thing, that's not bad actually. So low vision wise, that's not generally too bad, and it's fairly clean. Like going through your inventory and stuff, there's just a lot of having to figure out, like, okay, you got to press this button when you're on this screen and that button to do on that screen. It's like, where some of the stuff is located, because there's so many mechanics, there's so many systems in the game that it can be a little bit kind of overwhelming, and it's something you kind of have to get used to. So the more I play it, I'm sure I'll figure more of it out, but I'll talk more about Starfield when I do the Spotlight video, hopefully within a week or so here. But those are some initial thoughts. I will say that it has run quite well on my machine. I mean, yes, my computer is pretty high-end at this point. You know, I mean, it does require an SSD for storage. And I have 16 gigs or 16. I have 64 gigs of RAM and a RTX 4070 Ti. So, I mean, it didn't even spin up, you know, really loud or anything. And it ran smoothly. I really didn't encounter any bugs when I've played so far. So, yeah, I mean, that part of it at least seems pretty good so far. So, anyway, that's where we are going to wrap it up. I know we covered a couple more things than I originally intended, but such is the story anyway. But anyway, hope you guys found this video helpful. I definitely recommend you check out those things, the FPS dock, the Reload Magazine Kickstarter. Both of those links will be in the description below. So if you want to support them, check them out and help them out if you can. I think you'll enjoy them. And lots more to come on the channel. Hopefully I'll have a Starfield review fairly soon. But yeah, as for now, I'm going to wrap up the video, and maybe the cool thing is they just released some additional free content for Power Wash Simulator, just in time for me to have something to do while I listen to my new Dungeon Crawler Carl book, which is what I've been reading the last day or so. It's pretty nuts, but pretty good. And yeah, so I'm going to try to do that and hopefully get my sleeping schedule a little bit more back on track tonight. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, and right here on YouTube. Until next time, I will chat with everybody else, or everybody again later.